Before we get started, I feel like I have to address the Moogle in the room. For this review, I'm going to refer to this game as Final Fantasy III. Now I know technically it's Final Fantasy VI if you follow the series correctly, coming out of Japan, but I don't really go by all that stuff personally when it comes to my channel. And I know it's one of those triggering things with us nerds, just like we can't go without telling anyone that's played Mario Bros. 2 that it was a ripoff of Doki Doki Panic from Japan, or go without mentioning Castlevania Rondo of Blood anytime we see mention of Dracula X on the Super Nintendo. Now I can't change your mind, and I won't change my mind. Because I don't have to. Because I'm an American. I won't change my mind for anything, regardless of the facts that are set out before me. I'm dug in, and I'll never change. I do have the re-release of Final Fantasy III on the Nintendo DS, but it was super forgettable. They finally did release this game as Final Fantasy VI on the Game Boy Advance, but I don't have it. Now on to the review. Final Fantasy III is one of those games along with the original Lufia that I've had in my possession forever, but I haven't played until recently. Does anyone else have that problem? Like, I bought this game complete in box off eBay for $50 sometime around 2002 and tried to get into it a couple times, but generally got about 30% of the way through the game before losing interest. And what's weird for me is that I'm a huge fan of the RPG genre, and I grew up enjoying the stories, the grinding, and the secrets that came along with them. Not to mention that RPGs have some of the best music of any genre of video games. They're pretty relaxed, make use of your mind, and keep you invested with great storytelling. It's hard to mention an RPG that I don't like for some reason or another. I started streaming regularly, so I wanted to get back into some of the games I've been wanting to finish. So I dusted off my old copy of Final Fantasy III, put it in my cool little NT console, and went to work. Right away, I just have to say that Final Fantasy III probably has the best title screen intro of anything I've ever seen. The music and cinematics are beautiful for the era. There's one thing that sort of bothers me though, and I'm not sure if I was doing something wrong or if others are having the same issue, but when I let the game play a little too long in the title screen, it was really difficult to stop the cinematics and get back to the main menu at the start of the game. Perhaps I'm just dumb and wasn't doing something right, I have no idea. Final Fantasy III is a pure RPG. All of the action is a mix of a turn-based system with character timers. When your timer is up, you can attack, cast some magic, summon, or defend. Every character is a unique action gimmick, from steal, gamble, blitz, dance, and more. Most of these actions are pretty useful for a while, but seem to get outclassed by normal attacks or magic later in the game. I won't go into all of these, but I do want to cover Blitz. A character named Sabin uses this action, and it's one of the most frustrating things in the game. When you select this action, you must do a button combo that performs a special move. The same combination you would do for a Hadouken in Street Fighter performs a special version of the Hadouken in the game. It does a lot of damage and is very useful for most of the game, but for the life of me, I cannot perform these with 100% accuracy. It's pretty aggravating to me personally. Magic in this game is handled a lot like Final Fantasy VII on the PlayStation. When you collect Magicite, or summons throughout the game, you can equip them to any character you want. Each summon has a set of skills that can be permanently unlocked when you have them equipped during your battles. Basically what this means is that any character can learn any magic during the game. If you're a completionist like myself, this means that you'll be grinding endless amounts of battles later in the game in order to learn all the skills. Everything else gameplay-wise is pretty standard for the genre, but the story is where this game really shines and elevates it to another level. For those that haven't played through this game and still want to, don't worry, I won't go into total spoilers. I'm going to keep this one kinda short. To somewhat generalize what's happening, the main character of the game, Terra, is the only pure magic user from a bygone era. The evil empire has brainwashed her to do their bidding. Through various events, she befriends a party of misfits that is working on starting a rebellion against the empire. The empire has deployed a crazy general Kefka to do the dirty work. Kefka was a soldier in the Empire's army when they performed experiments on him to infuse his body with the power of the Espers, magical beings that existed alongside humans in the world hundreds or thousands of years ago. Kefka slowly loses his mind during the game, and he goes from being a cackling asshole to a genocidal murderer to a vengeful god. He is the tragic example of a villain that flew too close to the sun in search of never-ending power. There is far more to the story, but it's better left to you to experience for yourself. Alongside the story, you meet a whopping 14 playable characters in the game. That's right, 4 fucking teen. Each of them have their own story and ability gimmick, but in all honesty, most of them get kinda lost in the shuffle. You have the main players, and don't grill me if I pronounce these incorrectly: Terra, Loki, maybe Locke, Edgar, Sabin, Celise, Scion, and Setzer. Then you have a ton of characters that just sort of tag along with less than meaningful purpose, in my opinion. That's not to say that I didn't like some of the other characters. Like, for one, you get to finally play as a Moogle in Mog, and he's awesome. And his buddy Umaru, the Yeti, is pretty sweet too. Unfortunately, you can only have 4 characters in your party, so you have to throw some of the champs on the back burner. You can split Final Fantasy III into 2 distinctive parts: the World of Balance and the World of Ruin, and they're split somewhat 50-50 on timing of the gameplay. The World of Balance is the first act, and it's played very linear. This is where you and the gang are trying to rebel against the Empire and win the help of the Espers. This is the section of the game that I've given up on several times over the years, and it sorta drags on and on. The World of Ruin takes place after Kefka has gone mad and rains hell upon everything. Once you get to this section, the game is almost all open world, and it was a lot more enjoyable for me. During this time, you can fight secret bosses, hit up the Coliseum, the auction house, find a random ally, gain powerful items and summons, gain new abilities, and grind like hell if you want. A lot of these somewhat secretive new things provide some much needed character development for your team, which is pretty nice. Time-wise, you could really sink another 20 hours plus in the World of Ruin, so I'm not going to cover all of that. One thing I really enjoy though is that certain areas force your team to split up, which means you'll need to use some characters that have gone MIA for a long time. There are some RPGs, even great ones like Chrono Trigger, that you just never see certain characters once you have them all. I've spent many hours in the World of Ruin, grinding skills from Magicite for all of my characters, including the random ones. I think this kind of spoiled the ending for me though, as the end boss seemed ridiculously easy by the time I got there. I had the same problem with Final Fantasy VII as well, when I spent a lifetime grinding Knights of the Round and all my characters, and Sephiroth died almost instantly. Fortunately, Final Fantasy VII has some stupid hard secret bosses where the grinding finally pays off for. Final Fantasy III, however, really doesn't. There are 8 extra dragons you can battle, which are hard at first, but after just minimal grinding, they're a total breeze. The hardest area of the game for me was the Cultist Tower. In this area, you cannot use any attacks that aren't magic. And unless you've grinded out some great magic skills, it's quite damn hard and takes forever. Umaro, for some reason, can beat these nerds down with his auto attacks, which is pretty cool. Anyway, I don't want to spoil too much else from here on, but I will say that the ending is just perfect. It's like a straight 10-minute cinematic with excellent music and cutscenes. I wanted to get up and just start clapping with how great it is. And I'm just going to stop it here, and for my final thoughts, if you're a fan of RPGs, you have to play through Final Fantasy III. It's not the easiest RPG to get into for casual fans of the genre, but for the hardcores, you're not going to find a whole lot technically better out there. Other RPGs for the SNES are more colorful, some are more quirky, and some are maybe a little tighter or more fun. But this one is right up there with the best of them. Between Chrono Trigger, Final Fantasy III, Earthbound, Mario RPG, I mean, pick any of them as the best and you can't go wrong. Final Fantasy III, or Final Fantasy VI if you're pissed off and haven't left already, is a bona fide 5-star classic and a must play. Go play it. Now, go.